the South African Union of Students has slammed a proposal by NSFAS that university students will need a pass mark of 75% for the funding of their courses to continue. The students argue that exceeding the requisite 50% pass mark would be unfair to the millions of university students currently on NSFAS funding. Meanwhile, Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande says reports on the proposal are malicious, misleading and causing unnecessary confusion. He says no such decision has been made to increase the pass mark for students. But let's unpack theoretically what this proposal could mean. We're joined by the South African Union of Students, its Secretary General, Lukhanyo Daweti, and University South Africa Director of Operations, Dr. Meyer. To both of our guests, thanks very much indeed for your time. Lukhanyo, I want to begin with you this morning. So on the one hand, the Higher Education Minister says there is no such proposal that exists, that the pass mark must be increased to 75%. I think, just for the sake of clarity, according to your understanding, what is the proposal that is on the table insofar as the pass mark is concerned, whether it is a pass mark issue or it is a percentage of your modules that must be passed? What's your understanding?
Well, thank you very much, firstly, for having us. We really appreciate this opportunity. I think the Minister is quite correct. It's not the pass mark or pass rate. It's the 75% of the modules. But I must state it categorically clear that as the union, we did not accept such a proposal because we believe that NSFAS coming from 50%, which is the expectation previously, now to push it from 50% to 75% is quite huge. I mean, we need a staggered approach so that we can ensure that we adjust those that are being funded by NSFAS. So the Minister was quite correct. It's not pass mark, but it's 75% of the modules, meaning if you're doing 6, then you might be expected to pass 4.
Right. So what is your argument? Because, you know, there's an argument from a certain quarter that would say, isn't that reasonable to expect that if you are receiving funding, that you should pass a certain percentage of your modules, 3/4 of your modules you should be passing? There's another argument that would say, actually, that's exclusionary to a lot of students. Lukhanyo, what's your take?
You know, to be honest, to a certain extent it is. But also, we must be reasonable and perhaps be honest about the beneficiaries of NSFAS, because you ideally would want all your beneficiaries to be in residences, to be in private accommodations, of which is not happening across the universities. So, I mean, so now, to just have that particular proposal without having any piloting of some sort to test them, so to adjust them, because that proposal is not made for the first time entering students, it's made for seniors. But as the union, we believe that at least we must start somewhere so that we adjust them well within the system. Because, I mean, honestly, if NSFAS now is a bursary scheme, we ought to reach a point where we say that at least NSFAS must be able to say, out of this particular percentage that enters the system, at the end, this is the throughput. So I think that was an idea in introducing the percentage. But we're saying, for now, yes, it is, but at least let's start somewhere, not at 75%.
Yeah. Let's bring in Dr. Meyer, who's with University South Africa, the director there of operations. Dr. Meyer, on the face of it, this proposal, a proposal that says 75% of your modules, if you are receiving funding from NSFAS, that should be the benchmark. What's your take on that?
At University South Africa, we think the benchmark is too high to implement overnight. You can't go from 50% to 70% overnight, and specifically, you know, to change the system by 2023 to do that, we would need an incremental approach, and we would need programs to support students. This really is about the N+ rule. So the N+ is the minimum number of years that you get to complete a degree. So let's say it's 3 years. Currently, you get an N+1, which is an additional year that NSFAS funds the student. In the current proposal, it is the 75 plus an N+2, which means if you have 3 years to complete your qualification, NSFAS will fund you for an additional 2 years, so 5 years. Their argument is that they need a particular cap, for example, 75%, as an indication that a student will be able to complete the degree or the qualification within the specific time frame of the 5 years. And they cut in relation to the modules, so it means that 75% of the modules, as Lukhanyo pointed out, 75% of the modules that the student is enrolled for the particular year would then require a 50% pass mark to remain in the system. So our take is that quality advancements obviously are necessary, but it needs to be done in a systemic manner, and we need to really evaluate this and understand what this is going to mean for the system, because we can't overnight start excluding students. Many of our students come from very rural areas, and only in the second year, having gone through bridging programs and support programs, are able to then advance and achieve better marks at university.
Yeah. So, on the basis of what you're saying there, the issue of such a policy being exclusionary is a very, very big issue. As universities, South Africa, are you part of these kinds of decisions when it comes to where the cap should be, whether it's 75% of modules or lower?
Yes, so NSFAS is going through a process of consultation. They obviously provided a draft document. And this draft document is where they now consult with all stakeholders, being SAUS, being University South Africa, being the Department of Higher Education and Training, and other stakeholders that will be impacted by this specific decision. So certainly this is something that is on the table. We have, as University South Africa, said that we want to see an incremental implementation, but also that we can't have this huge jump from 50% to 75% because it will become exclusionary, and we need to have time to put adequate mechanisms in place to ensure that our students are supported and not excluded from the system. Remember that 70% of our students, close to 70% of our students come from NSFAS beneficiaries, which means that the system is really, a large part of our funding is from NSFAS students. The NSFAS bursary scheme currently last year was in the region of 46 billion rand that students were supported with. And we must understand that the entire university sector doesn't get much more than that, like 52 billion. And NSFAS has said that they have a shortfall for next year of 10 billion. But we must also be mindful in the policy framing and when we make these guidelines and decisions that it doesn't become restrictive and doesn't become an impediment on students that are currently in the system, but that we think these things through properly. And NSFAS has been open and has been engaging with us, and our colleagues at SAUS obviously have the same concerns that we have, that we ensure that we do things in an incremental, in a policy systemic way, so that the end of what is it that we're trying to achieve, that those objectives in fact are realized.
Yeah. Lukhanyo, let's bring you back into the discussion in terms of, you yourself admitted that perhaps we do need some sort of a benchmark that is perhaps higher than the current benchmark of 50%. As SAUS, are you discussing this with students, and do you have a figure in mind, not the 75% of modules, but a figure that takes us some way in pursuing excellence?
Yes, of course. As SAUS, we are having a conversation with students, because remember, the consultation which was taking place on Monday, in itself, it was organized by SAUS, inviting NSFAS to come and have a conversation with SRCs around this matter. So now, as I'm speaking with you, we are collecting the inputs from all the SRCs across the country. I think that is what is going to guide us in terms of what is the majority view in terms of what could be the percentage that is going to be reasonable. I don't want to say SAUS thinks that so much percentage must be put across, but of course, when we make that assessment from the contributions, then we will make that call when we combine the document and send it back to NSFAS.
Let me thank both of our guests for your time. Lukhanyo Daweti speaks on behalf of the South African Students' Union, and Dr. Linda Meyer is with Universities South Africa. Just to emphasize again that the Higher Education Minister has said that there is no such decision to increase the pass mark to 75% for students to be funded by NSFAS. In fact, those processes, those administrative processes are still underway.